The process begins by setting up the hightail near the rear end of the deer and then lifting the deer to place it in the hightail so that the V is slightly in front of the deer's hips. The lower part of each leg is folded forward so the hightail rope can secure each hind leg. The rope can be wrapped around a leg a couple of times if you prefer. Pulling the rope tight and locking it in the cleat positions the deer for maximum ease in field dressing. Hightail eliminates the annoying rear legs being in the way. A small cut is made at the point where the sternum or chest meets the abdominal cavity or belly, and then a long cut is made from the lower chest up to the throat. If you're planning on mounting your animal, do not make this cut all the way to the throat, as the taxidermist needs more of the cape. The cut along the sternum is made deep enough so that the knife cuts all the way down to the bone and cartilage of the chest. Once the sternum is opened, the deer splitter is inserted just under the lowest point of the sternum, and the deer splitter starts opening up the chest cavity. A cut is made with the deer splitter, and then the blade on the deer splitter is pulled through the first cut and another cut is made. This process is repeated until the entire chest is opened so that the windpipe and vital organs of the chest are now accessible for removal. The deer splitter makes this process easy and lets you cut through the toughest places on the deer without worry of puncturing something underneath. Now the belly or abdominal cavity is carefully cut from the first cut just below the chest cavity. Here we are not using a knife with a gut hook, but instead we're running fingers underneath the belly skin so that the stomach and intestines are not cut. Cutting into them results in a stinky mess. With the deer's entire belly side now opened, we take the deer splitter and split the pelvic bone. Now watch this. This is really cool. Simply, and with some care, insert the blade of the deer splitter under the pelvic bone as we're showing. Since the pelvic bone is a large bone, the deer splitter needs to be wedged into each cut to make it easy to use. With a couple of cuts through the pelvic bone, we have easy access to one of the most difficult areas when field dressing, removing the anus and intestines under the pelvic bone. With this method, you eliminate much of the mess and possible meat contamination. We begin on the rear of the animal by cutting the skin on the rear of the deer around the anus to detach it. Once we have cut completely around the anus, we are now beginning to carefully cut around the large intestine so that we can pull the large intestine forward and remove it from between the two legs and the pelvic bone. We now begin separating the center of the deer's organs around the stomach. Again, being careful not to puncture anything here. We move to the front of the deer and begin cutting around the heart and lungs. We cut through the windpipe and esophagus so that we can detach all of the organs from the front of the deer. The process of detaching the organs on the front of the deer is now done on the opposite side. Then we start cutting the front organs loose from the innermost side of the deer and begin to pull the organs toward the rear of the deer as we cut. Using one hand to hold the organs up so that we can see where we are cutting, we continue to cut the connective tissue so that we can detach the entire set of organs from the deer. As we pull the organ set toward the rear of the animal, we are cutting the remaining connective tissue pieces holding the organs in place, but continue to pull the entire organ set toward the rear of the animal. As you can see, this was done by one person in less than 5 minutes. The Viking hightail and the deer splitter make this job so much easier, quicker, and cleaner that even those with little experience can make this task simple. These are very affordable tools for every hunter. Even if you don't field dress, the deer splitter can easily be used on a deer that is hung vertically for the dressing operation.